Are. But hello everybody. Hi Bruce.
Hello.
And
Hi,
welcome
Bruce.
to welcome to
And
this
Martin. We really should
and
start saying
Martin.
hi to Martin, too.
Yeah, we definitely should start saying hello to Martin, although I can tell you he's not watching at the moment. Anyway,
Nobody is because we haven't gone through the elapsed time yet.
well, it says we're live. I mean, seriously, what else do you need?
You think we'd know how this
thing's
works
on?
by now?
Yeah, well, we think so, but we don't.
Delay.
Delayed. Okay, well, anyway, today is the 17th of September in the year of our Ford 2014, and to start us off, I think Jason had something he wanted to brood about.
So I have a problem with my the pilot light goes out, and interestingly enough, when the pilot light goes out, my ice maker starts working, and when I fix my pilot light, the ice maker stops working. So is this karmic retribution, or can you not have cold and hot at the same time?
Well, not in the same spot. Is your pilot light within your ice maker?
I'm not going to dignify that with a response.
Okay, is your ice maker within your pilot light?
It is not. They are two separate devices. They are separated by approximately 32 feet.
Is there anything between them?
Probably walls.
So, very
There's
good, Jenny.
probably-
Thank you.
It's the law.
There are probably some sort of quantum entanglement issues at work here.
I was thinking the chemist probably needs to answer this question, right?
Well, maybe the pilot light is tunneling electrons and electricity through these 30 whatever feet and ruining your ice maker. Although I don't think putting heat near your ice maker would make it stop working, but that's just me.
That's funny. I think you and I disagree on that point. I think heat next to the ice maker would make it stop working. I don't think I'd get any ice. It'd just be water.
Well,
But the enclosure to
it depends how strong your freezer is too.
well,
So
also
your,
it's a pilot
your
light,
ice maker
so-
doesn't work in the summertime?
My ice maker does not work when my water heater works, and vice versa.
Right, but if you hold up a lighter next to the ice maker, it doesn't turn the ice maker off. And that's going to be about the amount of heat.
I've not experimentally tried that. I shall.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Alright.
I guess it would be a different amount of heat because it's propane and butane.
All right. Well, you know what? Why don't you go ahead and take off your earphones, go find a lighter, and experiment for the next hour, and come back.
This is not
First-
a good choice. I do not
First-
support this choice.
First, this is the worst icebreaker in the history of icebreakers. Second, correlation is not causality, right?
I think he just picked it.
Causation.
He just picked it because icebreaker sounds like ice maker.
I think he just picked it because he wanted us to fix his water heater for him, or his ice maker, or
That's
both.
entirely possible.
I think he just needs to give Chewie the Hydra spanners, and once he replaces the flux capacitor, he'll be able to make the jump to hyperspace. Now, moving on.
See, the thing is, we can fix the relighting the pilot light is like a 5 to 10 minute procedure. It's a pain in the neck, but it's not $3,000 to $2,000. And we've done all the minor fixes, and we've had someone look at it, and basically the answer is you can keep lighting the pilot light, or you can buy a new water heater, which is a couple $1,000s. So we go out and light the pilot light every few days, and by we, I mean Jason, because it's usually him.
Okay, well, that sounds
Also,
reasonable.
eventually
to me.
it's going to explode when he lights it.
I hope
Well,
not.
that's why he's going out there.
Yeah, pretty much. He
Because
likes to play
Katie's
with
better
fire.
at assessing risk than Jason is.
That's
Is
fair.
he insured?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
There you go.
Like she'd let him do it if he weren't.
Totally. Oh,
He's
by the
really
way,
fighting
for
with the
those
ice
of us who might or might not be watching, we do have the Q&A app open, and disappointingly, we have no questions. So please feel free to interject with some questions, which we may or may not answer in an appropriate
Interjection.
fashion.
And remember, if we do answer your question on the air, you can be special guest next episode.
Maybe. So, Martin, here's your chance. Just saying. I'm not saying, I'm
Is
just
he
saying.
watching yet?
Oh, somebody's watching. I don't know. Anyway, Tom, are you with us?
I am.
You were going to fill us in on this fascinating new world of music selling.
Of what?
You were going to tell us how you sell music online. What's the logistics? Tell us about your album, how you're going to be rich off of 40 cents at a time.
I don't think you get rich off of selling music anymore. I think that's a dead model. I think you get rich off of convincing people to come see you play music and spending a lot of money on T-shirts and stickers and concert tickets.
Okay, but that's still music paraphernalia.
And I think that's what the Honorable Mr. Simmons was bitching about, because the model that he...
Right. Before you get too much farther, could you fill us in on how Gene Simmons fits into this conversation?
Well, that's what sparked the whole Tom Can Talk About Selling Music. Gene Simmons wrote, and it was at Vanity Fair, I think, where it was originally published, maybe, and then Rolling Stone picked up on it, where he said that rock music is dead, and the reason why rock music is dead is because you can't go out and make $1 million getting a record contract anymore. But that doesn't mean that rock is dead, or it doesn't even mean that you can't make $1 million playing music. It just means that you can't count on a record company to front you the $1 million before you actually sell the records.
All right. To be a little more specific, I believe his whole point was that rock is dead because upper and middle class white folks don't want to pay for music anymore.
Which I don't think is necessarily true. I think that, well, I guess it depends on how you define paying for music. And anybody who's really interested in this subject, David Byrne of the Talking Heads wrote a fantastic book called How Music Works, which basically is this sociological slash anthropological sort of look at music from every perspective. Oh, good God, I can't speak.
Anthropological?
Yes, economically, just across the board. It's a really good book. And that's a complete tangent. What were we talking about? What was
we
I
were talking about Gene Simmons and how people don't want to buy music.
Oh, people buying music, yeah. But I think people want to buy music experiences, right? That's what a concert ticket is, right? Like, that's one of the things that I've learned about even playing like local music, is that you can play the best show of your night, of your life in one night, and people who are there will go, "Oh my God, that band sucked." And you can have one of the worst gigs in the history of your music career, and people will be like, "Oh my God, you guys were incredible." And when they say that band sucked or that band was incredible, what they're really saying is, I had a good time or I didn't have a good time. And the band has relatively little to do with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the lesson for a band is to make sure that your shows are fun so that everybody has a good time, drinks a lot of liquor, and then wakes up the next morning remembering nothing but what a good time they had, and then they'll associate that with your band regardless of how good or bad you were musically. And I could make a dig about the Grateful Dead basically basing their career on that.
Dude, you are about to be in a world of hurt.
But I wouldn't do that with Jason here. No, but that is one thing that the Grateful Dead really perfected, was that their live shows were a lot of fun. Across the board, their live shows were a lot of fun, and it comes out. And they also, the other thing about being in a band is that when the audience is having fun, the band will play better, because the band can very much pick up on the emotions of the audience. If you have a bunch of miserable people standing around not digging your music is going to get progressively worse the longer you play, because you feed off of those vibes, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that
not having been in a band in a very long time, and the last one being in high school, I can't really relate to that part, but.
Well, I mean, in my experience, that's true, right? So,
I have two comments that I need to interject here.
Sure.
The first one is that I've never seen, unfortunately, the Grateful Dead live. I've only experienced them on tape or MP3 or something like that. But I would suggest that they're equally enjoyable, stone cold sober as well as not. Most of the times I enjoy them are without anything mind altering. And secondarily, I would suggest that you are absolutely right, Tom, that it's a shared experience, that the audience provides feedback to the people on stage, or at least it appears to me, being an audience member, that we provide feedback to them on stage that reinforces what they're doing.
Was it high fidelity or I think it might have been high fidelity where they make a dig about Frampton Comes Alive, and they basically say that the most important member of the band in Frampton Comes Alive was the audience. Because that's the thing about that concert video, right? The music is good, it's not great, but if you listen to the audience on that live album are clearly having a very good time, and it projects. And I've the same thing happens with Grateful Dead bootlegs, right, where you can actually hear the audience back there, and they're clearly responding to the music.
Or they're responding to some sort of mind-altering substance, maybe.
Oh, I don't think that you have to be
true of any band that has someone in their production team who knows how to record the audience well and record their music well. I mean, one of my favorite Boston CD is Live at the Middle East, and yes, it's because we saw them when they were there, but you know, it's also because you can hear Dickie's banter with the crowd, and you get to hear you get to hear them singing the chorus and stuff like that, and so a little bit of that crowd energy is transferred when it's done right.
Yeah.
I think to the CD, so I think that benefits it as well.
Yeah, I seem to remember, and I think I was listening to Sound Opinions when they were interviewing, I don't think it was Robin Zander, but somebody else from Cheap Trick, and they were talking about the Live at Budokan album.
Another fantastic example, yeah.
Right, because I guess in the actual stage recording that they took, especially if you're listening to I Want You to Want Me, there isn't really that much audience noise in the recording off the board. They actually inserted some of that crowd noise during post-production.
Well, I think that it was either Harrison or Lennon was talking about, the 64, 65 heyday of the Beatles, where you would go to a Beatles concert and all you could hear was screaming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure it was Harrison, actually, but he said when they got to Japan, it was like a total eye-opener. They had stopped... They had forgotten how to play music together because during all of these other shows on the world tour, all they could hear was girls screaming, right? And they got to Japan, and in Japan it wasn't like that. It was very much taboo for the audiences to scream or make any noise at all, so they suddenly found themselves in Japan, and they could hear themselves playing again, and they weren't very good. They had, they'd lost some of their tightness, I guess.
Well, kind of along those lines, if you've seen or heard a lot of footage of Frank Zappa's live performances, especially if it's especially if you're seeing more than just the actual songs being played, you'll see him at several points during a lot of the more famous recordings actually tell his audience to sit down and shut up, essentially, because he was there to play the music, not, in a way, there's a little bit
Hang
of
on.
But... Wait a minute, Tom, are you
Something's really staticky.
Yeah, it's probably Tom's mic.
Yeah, it's Tom.
Yeah.
So to your point, Peter, I've listened to a number of Grateful Dead concerts where they will hit a certain song or a certain section of the show where the audience just goes quiet. Mm-hmm. Now, you might call it rapture, it might be drug-induced, I'm not sure exactly what, but there's absolutely a communion between the band and the audience, and they recognize that there's something special happening.
Right.
And perhaps I'm adding too much into it, but it feels like they are in awe of the band, and just there's no reaction to it other than, sheer amazement.
Yeah, that's entirely possible, and, with regards to Zappa, of course, he certainly made lots of room for audience participation and for them getting more active during the show.
I was just going to say that surprises me that Zappa would do that, given how much audience participation.
He did a lot of that, but he also had lots of
every show had a secret word, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I've also seen several video recordings, where maybe he doesn't say the word sit down and shut up, but he's encouraging people to sit down and enjoy the music for a while first before they get into that type of segment.
Well, he always had a weird thing because he was pretty much a teetotaler, right? He was a pretty straight guy. He smoked cigarettes, but he didn't really drink. He didn't do drugs, but there was quite a big drug contingent among his audience,
Right.
and among other members of his band, much to his chagrin, right? But
right. I know.
So he
as
was
a
some
general
sort of-
rule, he didn't like his band members using while they were touring with him.
and he was pretty disdainful of that segment of his audience as well. You could tell it in his song lyrics for a lot of his songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway, this is a big tangent from the Gene Simmons thing.
There's a
No, I
a
think it's-
Paul
it's
Mary
the-
song where they do basically they sing several songs at a time, and so they layer song on top of song. So my assumption is that the echo from the audience would drive them insane if the audience was off even a little bit. And so I think it's Peter introduces the song, and he says, "You're going to hear some songs now that you've probably heard before. And the little voice in the back of your head is going to say, sing, sing. Please don't."
I'd imagine that having a good pair of in-ear monitors would really help with that.
Well, this is,
For
I
the-
mean,
for the band anyway.
this is literally a song that's, they have to be able to hear each other. So did I tell you guys about the rehearsal dinner that my cousin had? Have we had a GXG since I went to the wedding? So my cousin got married in East Hampton, Massachusetts, which apparently has even more hippies now than it did in hippies' heyday. And so my cousin, you know, being a member of my family, unsurprisingly, his rehearsal dinner was open mic night at a little luthier shop in downtown Northampton. It was really cool. But I'm struck by the fact that even in a teeny tiny little place, I was singing with my sisters, and it was really hard for me to hear what they were doing from 2 feet away, just because, you know, it was open mic. So I mean, the girl running the board was rocking it, frankly, but she still took her a couple minutes to figure out what we were all doing and what levels to set where and whatnot. So this is a song where they literally took a bunch of like children's songs and layer them on top of each other. So if you can't hear where the other person is, it's going to completely mess up the mix, and it's going to mess up the timing. And the other thing is, when you're in a really big stadium like that, there's enough of a time delay that the people that are on the lawn, which is where we always watch Peter, Paul, and Mary, because then you can bring a cooler, right? That's important. The people that are on the lawn are actually, by the time the sound that they make gets back to Peter, Paul, and Mary, it's late. So if you're singing along and you're on the lawn, you're like a microsecond behind, and that's enough to screw up a song like that. So I don't think the
makes
band is
sense.
breaking up.
No, I was just responding to Jenny.
Oh. Okay. Anyway, sorry, did I derail the conversation again?
No.
I think our entire broadcast is always one gigantic derailment.
That's true. That's why people love us. It's like watching a train crash.
They just
Yeah.
get away.
I don't think
that's
we've
the
ever
truest
had
thing we've ever
rails.
said.
Rails? What rails?
Tom does Ruby on Rails, right?
We're like
Sometimes.
bumper cars.
Okay, and just a quick reminder to those of you who may be watching, feel free to go ahead and use the Q&A app because it's open and we may or may not answer questions if we feel like it. So, ta-da, there you go. Anyway, so we were getting back to Tom's thing about Gene Simmons, I think.
So so all of this was basically about my point is that these days you sell the experience of music rather than some little disc, be it made out of vinyl or plastic or whatever, magnetic tape. And I don't think anybody's really figured out how to do that. And so I can see, especially if you were very deeply rooted in the old system, I could see how the new one would be really scary, although I would argue that Gene Simmons has made more than enough money that he really shouldn't give a shit about whether he understands the new system or not. He should have enough bank to last him until he dies.
Well, and with Gene Simmons, I think he's made a heck of a lot more money off of the idea of Kiss than he has off of the music of Kiss.
Well, Kiss was never really a great band to begin with. They were a solid band, and they had a couple of decent albums that were well produced, but music-wise, I don't think there were any virtuosos in that band.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right.
And so I don't know either. I mean, we're not trying to make money off of. We're not trying to be rock stars.
Right.
And in fact, we're not even really trying to. I fronted the money for this album, and we've gotten a 3-song EP off of it right now, and I don't really anticipate ever really making that money back.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, and I'm going to ask even if you mind me asking, but you don't have the answer, how much did it actually cost you to produce that EP?
Well, I mean that's a hard question to answer. The recording
costs of your instruments. I mean, just the recording and initial distribution.
Just the recording itself cost about $800 of studio time. That's not mixing or mastering any of the tracks. That's just to go into the studio and have the raw tracks recorded. And honestly, probably any other band, for the amount of time we used, could have gotten away with less hours, but because of the nature of what our music is, there were a lot of overdubbed guitar tracks. We have a lot of guitar tracks on our songs, so we consumed a little bit more studio time. But mixing and mastering, Cody did all that, so that was essentially free. But it wasn't, because he invested, just a ton of hours into it, and he used gear that I already had. Like, I already had a very nice set of Mackie reference monitor speakers, so we didn't have to go out and buy those. Those are I think they're like $600 or $700 a piece. And then you have software, which we already had, but if you were to go out and buy Logic, or God forbid you had to buy Pro Tools, that could be anywhere from $200 to $1,000. So you add up all of those little costs, and it gets to be very, very expensive. But the nice thing is that in the modern era, right, it's all done on a computer. You already have a computer, so you're just buying software, and you don't have to buy it all at once, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like 20 years ago, we would have had to have gone into a studio to do all of it, because they would have been mixing and mastering on real hardware, not
That's
software.
what I had to do. We had to go to a studio because there was no good home studios really, other than like a Mackie 4-channel mixer.
Yeah, which is great for demos, but you're not gonna get a real album out, right?
Right.
And even then, right? Like even today, we went into the studio because I didn't want to have to think about engineering, right? Like I didn't want to have to think about where does the microphone go. I just wanted to play music, and I didn't want to have Cody to have to think about it either. I wanted him to play guitar. So that was sort of our idea, is let's go into a studio and have somebody else record it, and then we'll mix it, because the guy that actually, it was pretty funny, the guy who owned the studio that we recorded at had never really done any rock music before. He had done mostly country and Americana. So it was like we weren't really going to be able to count on him to mix and master the music, because it wasn't really a genre he was that familiar with. Mm-hmm. And when you start, and that seems like a silly thing to say, because you would think that music is just music, right? But it's not. Like there's the way something as innocuous as a kick drum, the way a kick drum sounds will vary between country music and rock and alternative rock and indie and pop and progressive, and so you know that's just one drum out of the entire drum kit, to say nothing about bass and guitar and all of that other stuff. So anyway, I'm done boring you. That's how much it costs. $700 plus mixing time. $800.
I didn't think that was boring. I know this guy who's really good with hardware and loves music but doesn't play it that well, and for years he's been telling me that he would worry about all the production shit so that I could record music for fun, and for some reason it just never happens.
So I have this not so quiet. It is Jim, but let me tell you this not so quiet secret. The not so quiet secret is that if I could live my life over again, I would be a recording engineer.
You don't have to live your life over again. You can be one now.
Nah, it's too late. I'm already invested in something else.
No.
It's not bullshit. I'm just invested in something else.
Tom. Thank you, Tom.
That's bullshit.
If I moved to Colorado and tried to help Tom out, it wouldn't happen.
I would come with you to Colorado and help Tom out. Tom needs a vocalist, right?
The state is too progressive for me.
Hey, Jason, just out of curiosity, why would you, if you had it, if you,
So-
were starting it, why?
So here's the weird thing. I absolutely love hearing the different pieces and parts of music being put together to create the whole. So I hate to admit it, I cop to enjoying behind the music on VH1. But when they get into the studio and they start picking apart the different pieces, or not, it's not behind the music, it's behind the album or classic albums or something like that. When they start picking
He
apart,
likes the show so much he can totally remember the name of it.
to be fair, it's been a while since I've seen one of those. But when they start picking apart the music, there's an awesome documentary called The Sound of Tom Dowd. I can't remember exactly what. When they get into the master tapes and they start saying, all right, now listen to this little guitar part that we added in here. And it's things that add together, that create the whole, that you don't necessarily recognize when you're listening to it as individual parts, that I just find amazing. That they can layer these different things on to create this unique sound that you don't see as individual parts. I would love to be a part of that. I think that's incredible. I think that's awesome.
Okay, now, just because I'll give you a little background. I had at one point actually considered becoming an audio engineer, and I looked into the schooling for it, and I talked to some people who did it as a career, and an awful lot of them, well, it's kind of like being in IT, actually. You start out on help desk, and it burns you out, and you get every band that comes through and wants to have an album made, and they're going to nickel and dime you on everything, and try and take shortcuts, and it just drives the art out of it for a lot of people. And hearing as many of those stories as I did, I decided not to do that, obviously.
So I have sort of the same story with IT, right? I was always good in computers. I was always good in IT, but I never studied computers formally. It was always something I was interested in and something that I excelled at. But I didn't want to get a job. I didn't want to get a career in computers because I was afraid that it was going to kill my interest, my desire to actually work on them. And in some jobs it did. But then I found one where it absolutely did not. And I think it's a position of where you're doing that. And to your point, that there might be some locations where it'll beat the artistry out of it, that you'll be sick of being nickel and dimed, and perhaps you have your certain opinions on how things should be done, and the band has their opinions on how things should be done, and you think, I know better than they do, et cetera, et cetera. But then you might find another location, another recording studio where it's not like that at all.
Okay. I really was just curious why, and that's a good...
I just love it. I like seeing the architecture of how it's put together. And to Katie's point, I can't play very well. So the idea of putting these different parts together and forming something greater than the sum of the parts is fantastic to me.
Did you guys see that video that's going around of the I think he's Israeli, the composer who just took all of the amateur musicians just like practicing piano and bass and guitar on YouTube, and he turned it all into a song?
No, I hadn't seen that.
I've not seen that either. That's pretty cool. But
it's amazing sounding, actually.
It reminds me of what was that? Gautier's "Someone I Used to Love." He released a cover version of that. This is
someone that I used to know.
I'm sorry, someone I used to know. He released a cover version of that where he took all the different covers from YouTube and mixed them together to create, a new, unique piece, and then released that, not, sort of quote as his own, released as his own mix.
You're not going to talk about my unique cover version of that song?
I'm not. I'm going to let you talk about that.
Did you guys know I did a cover version of that song, and you can hear it on Nobilis Reads podcast?
Was this the not safe for work one?
Yes, it was.
Yes, I did know that.
When Sophia was 3.5, she absolutely adored that song. Loved that song. And I could tell you, for 2 months, Holly and I were using Gautier's as a unit of time measurement for how long it took to get to a place.
Wait. How long is a Gautier? I'm curious about that. Is that?
I don't know, but I can tell you that the daycare that Sophia was going to was 2.5 Gautiers from our house.
So it's more of a distance than a time measure?
It
Well,
was
it's more like a light year.
Tom.
Light year.
Go ahead,
My
Jen.
nephew
Well,
lived
on that
that when
same-
he was 2. Like, it was his favorite song. Well, that and some weird Russian opera song, but that was one of the two songs that he loved.
I have a similar story with our oldest. I still take both boys to school, but at first it was just the oldest that I would take to school, and it was about 25 minutes away or so, and we had to listen on repeat to the original Amazing Spider-Man theme song from the 1960s cartoon,
Rock.
over and over and over and over and over. Oh my God! I could have killed Now I like Spider-Man. I like that cartoon, but not any longer.
But was it only that one version, or could you slip in another?
Only that one version.
No
Only
Ramones,
that one
no
version.
Aerosmith.
No. And to be fair, it was what was it? The first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. It was the soundtrack from that where the Amazing Spider-Man or the original theme song was either the last track or the first track. I can't remember. And as soon as it would hit the next track,
Serious. Wow.
oh yeah, it was rough. And this was, like I said, the song is maybe 2 minutes long, so I'd listen to it a dozen times on the way every single day for weeks and months on end.
Well, along the same lines of using songs as a measurement of time, it takes on a good day it takes me approximately one trapped in the drive-thru to get from home to work. So there you go.
Okay.
Wow, it takes me 2 podcasts, and they're usually 45 minutes long.
That sucks.
It does.
Jeez. All right. So, oh yeah, actually, Tom, I was actually going to ask about the music thing. We've talked about the recording part and the mastering. You already had half that stuff. But as far as actually getting it up to like Google Play or other vendors, what do you actually do? Is there just like a form you fill out and say, this is our stuff, sell it?
So there are bunches of different ways to do it. So we took we had 3 different routes. So you can stream the album for free off of SoundCloud. So we put it up on SoundCloud so that people could stream it, and that was mostly so we could link it into the website, because there are a lot of pretty decent libraries to allow you to just embed the SoundCloud player into your website, regardless of whether it's Tumblr or Drupal or WordPress or whatever it is. We sell the album on Bandcamp, where you can also stream it on Bandcamp, but the embedding of Bandcamp is not quite as sophisticated. But we sell it first party on Bandcamp, where I think that they keep 10%, I want to say, of every sell. So we're selling it for $3, so they keep 30 cents and we get the rest or whatever, right? And then we're using a distribution network, and there are a bunch of these. CD Baby is one of them that's very popular. We're using one called Louder, which is LOU.DR, I think. It's like one of those crazy things. And they're actually handling most of the distribution. And what you do is you actually upload high-quality WAV files, like full CD rips, or CD resolution rips, to those guys, and then they will distribute it to iTunes, to Google Play, to Spotify, to Pandora, and then to a bunch of like lower tier music distribution things too, if you want to. And there's no upfront fee for that, but they take 30% off the top. So for every album, actually that's not true. They take 10%, and then the music distribution people take 30%. So both Google and Apple take 30% off the top. So Google or Apple would get the 30 cents, or sorry, the dollar. Yeah, close to $1. And then Louder would take another cut of the actual money you get from them. So they're taking a percentage of the $2.10 or whatever you get back, right? But again, we're not really in it to make money. If you really want to make money at it, I suspect that you would not sell it through iTunes until you actually had enough market penetration where you could you could sell massive quantities of it that you wouldn't care about them taking the percentage, right? Like for us, if we were interested in making money, we would tell everybody to go Bandcamp and buy it there because we get more money than we do from Google Play or iTunes or anywhere like that. But
yeah, but I would expect you'd get more visibility just in like random strangers stumbling upon it on Google Play or iTunes than on Bandcamp.
well, even though I had already posted both the Bandcamp and the iTunes link on my G Plus stream, there were people who didn't buy it until I actually posted the Google Play link, because for whatever reason Google Play is where they want to buy music from. It's an ecosystem thing, I guess, right? Same thing with iTunes. There were people who didn't buy it from Bandcamp, even though it was the same price. But once we posted that you could buy it on iTunes, these are people I know, right? Like, it's not strangers stumbling across it. It's people I know that waited until it showed up in whatever their preferred ecosystem was before they bought it, you know?
Right.
And that's fine. I mean, like I said, we don't really care about the money. We're more interested. I'd rather people just download it and listen to it, if that's what we have to do to get people to listen to it. But,
well, I know, like, for me, I'm at the point now where I'm leery of signing up for any extra accounts for anything. You know, so if I come across music I like and it's available on 3 different services, I'm going to gravitate, even if it costs a little bit more. I'm going to gravitate toward the service I've already got credentials for, that I already use.
see, and I will always go to the band's website, and if the band is selling the album on their website, I will buy it from the band, because it's almost guaranteed that that the band themselves will make more money off of however they're selling it on their website. Because it's usually through something like Bandcamp or CD Baby, where they take a smaller percentage than somewhere like iTunes or Google Play.
Right. Well, and if it's something that I don't actually have to sign up for something, I can just purchase it and not have to create a whole new login. That's one option, but I get leery about creating ever more accounts that I have to keep track of, one way or the other.
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of people are like that, I think. And a lot of people just want it to show up on their their Android device or their iPhone without them having to do anything. And if they buy it in Google Play or if they buy it in the iTunes Store, it just shows up, And sometimes on iTunes Store, even if they don't buy it, it just shows up.
Yeah, so I don't. I don't actually have. Well, actually, I do have an iTunes account. But I haven't touched iTunes in a very, very long time. So I have no idea if they've allotted me this special U2 purchase.
They have.
Yeah. Well,
Tim Cook wants you to have that album.
Is it just me, or does it sound... I haven't heard it, but I imagine it sounds like everything U2 has done for the past 15 or 20 years.
I don't quite know if I would go back that far, but yes.
Yeah, I kind of feel like U2 has 3 good songs, Bloody Sunday, and then because of my own nationalistic tendencies towards, for New Zealand, One Tree Hill, and then I think there's a third one.
Are you saying they're kind of like AC/DC? They just produce the same album over and over again?
Yeah, I listened to it. I mean, it's not offensive to listen to or anything, but I mean, so if you wanted more U2, then great.
I agree with Peter. I think it was sort of more of the same. It's groovy, right? My foot's tapping to it, but it's nothing earth-shaking.
But it's not sticking in your mind.
I'm not sure it was worth $100 million.
I thought it was pretty forgettable myself.
Well, I didn't pay for it, so that colors my opinion.
Well, I didn't either, so...
Well, if Peter is paying $100 million for an album, I've got one I can sell him.
Well, no, I mean, Tim Cook paid the $100 million for it, apparently.
I don't know that that's been substantiated, though. I think he was talking about the ad campaign for the iPhone 6 in general.
Oh, well, that seems more reasonable.
Of which...
Oh, of course.
U2 album is part of, but... I don't know I don't think that U2 got $100 million. God, I hope not.
Yeah, it'd be... Yikes.
You're killing me.
You could have offered to, I don't know, like 50 million or something like that for your album. And
Like the pilot, we'll lowball you, dude. $5,000, it's yours.
Hell, for $100,
Tim
I
Cook.
would have produced an entire album of my own.
Oh boy.
It might
Is
not.
Tim Cook on our listeners? Or is Tim Cook tuned in?
Well, you know, I send him the invites. He never responds, so I don't know if he's actually shown up or not.
Him
No,
and the
he's just
Nerdist
missing an
guy, right?
opportunity.
Timmy, if you're watching us, would you please leave something in the Q&A so we know?
Jim, did you get your guitar cable?
I did.
Does it work?
Yeah, it works. I need to spend a little more time setting everything up, but yeah, I was playing my guitar through the computer. It's nice.
Sweet.
And for those of us who don't know what Tom just asked Jim about, Jim, I believe you posted a link to a guitar cable that terminates on one end in a USB connection.
Yes.
Yep,
And,
basically just a USB audio device.
Yeah, and there's plenty of like amplifier simulator programs out there, and I just put one of those on my machine, and I guess Tom and I are going to record an album now.
So is that the same one that they is that like the one that they have for like the Rocksmith app and that sort of thing?
You know what? I don't know if it's the same one or not. All I know is I found it. It's like a $100 list price, and I found a place that was selling it for $20.
Dude,
It comes with the guitar rig LE or something, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, version 4. They're on 5 now. So,
Oh, okay.
you know, but it's a free download. So,
It's pretty
Now-
solid.
Yeah, I have a confession to make here. I don't have a guitar. I don't have anything that I can actually use it with, but I bought the damn thing anyway.
well done, Peter. Well done.
Why? Why? Because I figure, well, one of these days I'll actually buy that electric ukulele.
just do it. Do it.
And you'd hate to lose all that.
Totally. And you know, since this was, it says the MSRP was like what, $80 or something like that, and this was like 20 or I forget how much it was.
So you would have lost money if you didn't buy it.
See, I would have been remiss if I didn't buy this.
That's why my closet is so full that I have too
See,
much stuff to go in
Jenny,
there.
Jenny understands me, like the rest of you don't.
You know what, though? Talking about it and how that guitar cable ends in the USB plug, it's now making me wonder if the microphone that came with my Wii Rock Band will work with my PC if I plug it in.
It doesn't.
That is a fantastic question.
Well, no, Jenny, it wouldn't out of the box, but with the driver installed that handles the conversion for the guitar cable, the microphone might work.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
once you
but-
figure that out, you can come over
Does
and
the
work
does
on mine
the
too, okay?
does the guitar cable show up just like as a generic audio device?
Yes.
Okay.
And you just select it as your audio source.
I
So,
feel like Microsoft would have locked it, though.
well, maybe. I'll have to dig it out and find out.
Yeah. There you go. And let's see here. What else we got going on here? So let's see. Okay. Let's see. Next thing here. So as is my wont, I was wasting time at work today, and I saw posted from a couple places, including the BBC and also linked to from the Mary Sue, that somebody, I think it was in Australia, had their pet goldfish, who's like 10 years old at this point. It's a big goldfish, but obviously a very loved and valued pet, who got a big tumor on it, and they opted to put the goldfish through surgery to have, you know, it's a regular goldfish. We're not talking about like a big koi or something. A regular little goldfish had surgery to remove a tumor, and apparently the goldfish is doing well. It's like, that was pretty. It's just reading about this. I know,
Yay,
seriously.
goldfish.
Tears
Totally.
to my eyes.
It's no
Yeah.
fugly.
Totally, it's no fugly, but you know, people love their goldfish, man.
They obviously care more about their goldfish than I did when I tried to murder mine so that it would get out of my tank.
Wait a minute, you tried murdering your goldfish?
I couldn't bring myself to flush it, and I
Jenny,
only
what kind of
brought it
psychopath
to-
are you?
The whole purpose of this goldfish was to condition my tank so that when I put other fish in there, they wouldn't all die immediately.
Wait a minute. So you were trying to kill the goldfish from the beginning?
Yes, I bought the goldfish to be a disposable goldfish.
You're
should
mean.
have gotten a turtle to go along with it to eat the
He
gold.
lived for 3 years. He
Yeah.
was as big as my hand. He was the worst goldfish ever.
So when we moved into this house, there's a koi pond in the backyard. It's one of those, you can buy a big plastic liner from Lowe's and fill it with water, and boom, you've got a pond. And there were some goldfish in it, and the pond was nasty and disgusting. And so we took the goldfish out and we cleaned the pond, and then we filled it with water. And then one of us told the other that they should wait a while before putting the fish back into the pond because all the chlorine has to evaporate from the tap water, and the other one didn't believe the first one.
Wow.
All
I
the
can't believe that.
Somebody didn't believe somebody else? The hell you say?
To be fair, I think it was a time issue. It's not that I didn't believe; it's that I wasn't certain. Excuse me.
We already knew it was.
It is that someone wasn't certain the amount of time that needed to be waited. We agreed that there was a period of time. There was a disagreement between the two parties as to how long that period of time was. Now,
5
to be
minutes.
fair, I know it was a bit longer than that, but it was not nearly as long as it should have been. I felt like shit too. I mean, that other person felt like shit.
Not to name names or anything.
But if somebody
No,
had done that,
Correct. I could empathize with them.
Okay. All right. So is there if you let's just say, for example, that you did actually have a goldfish that you actually liked, that has been around for a while, and you weren't actually trying to actively kill.
right, one that wasn't a jerk like Herbert was,
I
because
was
he was
gonna say,
kind of evil.
You
Correct.
named it.
Let's
and
talk
you
about
tried to kill it.
Fish be a
Wait.
jerk.
Let's talk about suicidal goldfish.
He would bang on the side of the tank when I was sleeping. He knew that I did not want him to do that. I'm just talking about how my fish was a jerk.
Okay. So let's say that you liked Herbert. Just pretend for a minute that you had actually liked Herbert. How much money would you have been willing to spend to save him if something was wrong with him?
Oh man, I'm the wrong person to ask that question because
0 for you.
yeah, 0. I don't have that type of empathy for.
I mean, for myself, if I had a goldfish that was 10 years old and I was really attached to, and there was something wrong with it, I'd see if there were like little drops or medicine or something you could put in the water to maybe cure it, and if that didn't do it, I'd say goodbye. I don't think I'd spend $200 to have surgery performed.
See, for us, it's a matter of I think with pets, especially older pets, you also have to consider quality of life.
Yeah.
So our dog, who's about 35, 40 pounds, she's a Beagle Dalmatian, bigger than a Beagle, smaller than a Dalmatian. Last year got a back injury, and so we were carrying her up and down the stairs. We were, for her to go to the bathroom, we would have to take her out in the yard and hold under her belly so that she could use the bathroom, and she was just miserable. I mean, this is a dog who used to chase deer, like elk.
Right.
Like we used to laugh. We used to say that when she was sleeping and she was going like this, that she was chasing elk in her sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she had that problem, we had the how far are we willing to go to try and how much do we want to try and spend on her versus. And how much life is she going to get out of the amount of money that we spend? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm,
It turned out that
absolutely.
she got some good drugs, and we kept her off of her legs for a couple of weeks, and she healed up pretty well.
Okay.
So she's still with us. She's still driving us a little bit crazy. She's right now licking her leg.
I wish I
But
could.
yeah,
do it
I think for us, for both of us, the biggest, factors to weigh were not just the amount of money, but what the quality of life is going to be like after you spend that amount of money.
Well, in the case of the goldfish, I don't think its quality of life changed at all because it was still a goldfish and it was prone to forgetfulness and banging into the side of the tank. And
So do you think it's a happier goldfish? It's probably a little bit happier.
I think the goldfish probably doesn't feel any different than it did before. because it can't remember what it felt before.
Technically, they can because you can teach goldfish things, and they can develop long-term memories.
So
No,
I
I always had the impression that goldfish had zero long-term memory whatsoever.
That's because that's the lies you've been fed, Peter.
You know, well, did Herbert show you otherwise?
No, I read a study.
Oh, sure, some scientist. Take
And
a
I
scientist
do think he
word for
learned.
it.
He learned that when I was trying to sleep, he could bang on the side of the tank and be a jerk.
Okay, fair enough. Jason, were you saying something about suicidal goldfish? Because I did have a couple that decided they were going to try finding out life in the great unknown and then discovering that it wasn't to be.
So I did mention suicidal goldfish, but that's really a Katie story more than it is anything else.
So we had goldfish in college, my roommate and I. We had a pretty big tank. I don't remember if it was 25 or 50 gallon, but it was a pretty big tank. And so we had these two goldfish. They were named Norma Jean and Marilyn. And the morning before my final exams, you know, like any college dorm room, we had like all of the parts of the dorm of a house in one room. You know, like we had our little kitchen section and whatever. And so next to the fish tank, which was on my desk, was a big pile of napkins, which was kind of our, you know, grab when you're eating spot. So one of the fish, oh, and I should say that the fish tank was secondhand and it didn't have a lid on it.
You should name them.
Name who?
The fish. You should announce their names.
She did.
Oh, you know what? You're right, actually. No, Marilyn and Norma Jean were the replacement fish.
Oh.
The original fish were Optimus Prime. And Bob? Yes, Optimus Prime and Bob.
I feel like there's some discrepancy in your naming.
It was when Mallrats came out. It made perfect sense to have Optimus Prime and Bob.
Okay.
Anyway, Optimus Prime jumped out of the fish tank and landed on the pile of napkins. He never had a chance. He dried right out. He just, you know.
They were ultra-absorbent napkins.
And I found him the morning that I was going to take an exam. And I was like, oh my god, my fish is dead and I have to go take this exam and my fish is dead. And I put him in the sink and I added water and nothing happened. He was dead. I mean...
Well, you thought you could just, like, rehydrate him?
I figured if he had any, like, last gasp of breath in him that he would be more able to recover if he had water. I mean, come on, didn't you see Splash?
Why did you just put him back to the tank?
Wait, they didn't rehydrate Daryl Hannah, though. He was dead.
Yeah, see, when Daryl Hannah got rehydrated, she developed fingers.
He was stuck to the napkins, and I didn't want to kill Bob, too.
You know, I mean, it's not entirely unreasonable, I'll say, though, because I've known people who've had goldfish that were frozen solid.
Frozen solid is not the same thing as desiccated.
I understand, but I'm just saying, you know, in kid logic, you know, if something can be frozen solid and then suddenly
because
she was in college.
College is
she was college. Well, I mean,
I was very childlike.
Was?
I went to Europe one time, and I had set up an aquarium. I was going on a 2-week vacation, and I had set up an aquarium, and I was going to buy some nice tropical fish when I got back. And my stoner roommate, to play a joke on me, bought 30 feeder goldfish and stuck them in the tank while I was gone. But he was a very responsible stoner roommate because he realized that you couldn't just put 30 goldfish in a 20-gallon aquarium without instantly overwhelming the filter system, so he bought a second complete filter system for it so that it would have enough filter to keep 30 feeder goldfish alive for 2 weeks. And I had 30 feeder goldfish for probably 2.5, maybe 3 years.
Best roommate ever.
They were not. They didn't knock on the glass to keep me awake at night. They were fine.
They were not asshole goldfish.
Well, I think Herbert was only like that because he got too big for his tank, because I left for a month and I let Jamie have him, and Jamie overfed him, and then Herbert was twice as big as he was when I left. Like within a month.
So he wasn't really ramming against the sides of the tank so much as bumping against it because he had no room?
Probably.
He may have been lonely. He may have needed 29 companions to keep him
He had a friend, and he ate him.
goldfish will grow as big as the container that they're in allows them to grow.
Right, so he grew bigger than his container because he was a dumbass.
When I left college, I put my remaining goldfish, Bob, Norma Jean, and Marilyn, in my friend's pond in Catonsville, and I like to pretend that they're still living there.
So Norma Jean and Marilyn were introduced, and Bob did not eat them.
No, Bob was fine with Norma Jean and Marilyn.
Mm.
Well, if you were Bob, wouldn't you be fine with Norma Jean and Marilyn too?
Well, Herbert ate his two
Marilyn
friends.
actually had a little dot on her right here, by the way.
Aw.
She was like, the front of her was white and the back of her was orange, and then she had the little dot.
See?
Did you rename her to Diana after the car wreck? Isn't that what you're supposed to do with Norma Jean?
Too soon,
That's
Tom.
the worst candle in the wind joke I've ever heard.
I'm sorry, I just have no idea what you're talking about.
Unlike all those other Candle in the Wind jokes.
Remember Elton John re-recorded "Candle in the Wind" after Princess Diana died?
Oh, yes.
Oh, right,
He changed the
sorry.
lyrics to
Thank you
Princess
for connecting the
Diana.
dots for the one who's had too much tequila. Or not quite enough.
What is this too much tequila you talk of?
I said, or not quite enough.
I don't understand it either. She's failed me.
So I should really plug. You know how we like to plug our drinks because they totally support us and like send us money and stuff.
You wish.
On a total whim, I bought this skinny mix. I think it's called margarita sweet and sour mix because I like a good margarita. But man, sour mix it's got a fuck ton of calories in it, you know. And so like when I see something that looks like it might be decent, I try it. A lot of times it's disappointing. This one is actually really good, I have to say. This tastes like a margarita. So skinny mixes, margarita mix, 5 calories for like a cup. I like it.
Have you ever made your own sour mix, Katie?
No, Jason does a really good rum punch that he makes from the 2 Fat Ladies recipe, which is 1 of sour, 2 of sweet, 3 of strong, and 4 of weak. So that's our favorite make your own. So it's 1 of sour, which is lemon juice. Maybe I'll just throw it over to Jason at this point.
1 of sour, 2 of sweet, 3 of strong, and 4 of weak. So the sour is the lemon
that
juice.
rhymes.
The sweet is simple syrup. The strong is, I'm sorry, lime juice, not lemon juice. The strong is rum, and the weak is just plain water. And it is a ratio, so it doesn't matter what you use as the basis of your measurement. So if you'd like a gallon, you use, I think, a half cup as the basis of your measurement. If you'd like just a nice drink, then you use 1 ounce as the basis of your measurement. And as long as you keep the ratio, it works out well. Fairly strong. No, wait, very strong.
That's how I make my bread, with ratios.
So my favorite margarita recipe was given to me by a friend who was a bartender for a bunch of years, and he's really lazy about this, and I appreciate the laziness of it. And I'm reading it off the screen now. So it's a 1/3 cup limeade, 1/3 cup grapefruit juice, 1/3 cup tequila, tablespoon agave nectar, and then you add a jalapeno sliced up to it. Or a habanero if you prefer. I actually like the habanero a little bit better.
It sounds painful.
Oh, it's delicious. The sugar from like the agave and the various juices actually cuts the heat from the pepper quite a lot.
Okay.
Sure it does.
Take it home, Tom.
No, I have nothing to add. I bought 5 gallons of 1554 for my beveraging tonight.
I have $3 Chuck.
That's good. Our Trader Joe's is opening.
Wait.
in
$3
2
chucks.
months.
They've gone up.
That's how much it is here.
Oh my God! It used to be $2 chuck.
No, I know, but I think that's like...
I am Jack's level of disappointment.
So
Our
I'm
Trader Joe's is
drinking-
opening in like a month. So
Well,
So
I was
I-
going to the middle of town, so I figured if I'm going to the middle of town, I may as well stop by Trader Joe's.
And pick up
I'm
$3.
drinking a locally produced whiskey that I was told is now officially a rare bottle of whiskey from the Westland distillery located in the DeSoto neighborhood of Seattle, and apparently my wife managed to find a first run of their peated Scotch style American single malt. But yeah, it's apparently now next to impossible to find. I think I might have the last bottle in existence.
That's a big thing that's going on here. So I don't know. So the Front Range of Colorado, because I'm in Fort Collins, but the entire Front Range is called the Napa Valley of microbrews because we have like just this insane number of microbrews per capita.
Yep.
But the big thing now is that there's a bunch of those micro distilleries that are popping up. So there's a couple of places making really phenomenally good whiskey around here now. And the place down in Loveland, which is like 15 miles south of here, they're actually making their own gin, which is really, really fantastic.
So does Coors and Coors Light count as a microbrew in Colorado?
No, but there is an Anheuser-Busch brewery about, I don't know, 10 minutes from here. I mean, I guess they might have one in California, so maybe it's their Central Brewery, where the Clydesdales spin the winner. Yeah, trivia.
Yeah,
we have a microbrew whiskey distillery right down the road from me.
I know that there are a few breweries, microbreweries, fairly near here. I don't know much else about them, though, because I'm not much of a drinker, which makes me an outlier amongst our little crew here.
Within the last year, we've had 3 distilleries open, 2 cider pressing places, and then a new place that is brewing mead as well. And we already had a couple of mead places.
Okay, speaking of cider, I'm only going to ask this because I've seen like a whole bunch of commercials and billboards for cider in like the last 7 or 8 months, and I can't remember ever seeing any prior to that. So is this like some sort of big new thing? Well, obviously cider's been around longer than that, but I mean, as far as being something people actually go out of their way for.
I think it's something that homebrewers have been doing for a while, because I always do. If I have a spare carboy sitting around, it's super easy to get, in the fall you can find some unpasteurized apple juice, and you basically just throw champagne yeast and a little sugar in with it, then stick a gas tap on it and come back in a month or so, and you've got hard cider. So I think it's something that, like, homebrewers have been doing for a while, and there have been, I think woodchuck is like a national thing, isn't it? There have been national cider bottlers, but I think that it's starting. I think what it amounts to, I think the distillery thing, the mead thing, and also the cider thing, I think it's microbrews are like, well, brewing beer is cool, but we have this gear, not so much with the distilleries, but with the cider definitely, and also with the mead. We have this gear that we can repurpose for these other tasks, so why just stick to beer? Let's brew some other stuff as well.
And then it broadens your base for people that don't really like beer. They can still go along with their friends and have something to drink.
Yeah, I think it's really exploded a lot in the last few years. We have some friends who are crazy big into cider, and part of that's because one of them has celiacs and can't have gluten. But I think there's also kind of a big boom in people who are either gluten intolerant or self-diagnosed gluten intolerant, and I think that the cider world is kind of tied, managed to sort of hack into that rather neatly. But we went to actually a big cider festival last weekend, and they had something like 100 different cider producers all packed into a little park.
So are there really big differences in ciders?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, even like if you just restrict yourself to like apple as opposed to pear or rhubarb or other fruit ciders.
See, and I've really only ever heard the term cider as it relates to either vinegar or apples.
Yeah. Yeah, pear cider is also pretty common, especially I think they use the sort of the harder pears for the pears that have more of a texture like an apple for ciders as well. But apple is definitely the most common, and being that we're here in Washington State, there's a whole lot of apples grown here, and so hence a lot of cider But yeah, there can be a pretty big range. They range from very sweet, I think, to dry, and then there's a whole lot of variation even then beyond that. So we had a dry hopped cider that was rather interesting. So it was a fairly dry cider, but with hops added. So it actually kind of had a little bit more of the character of a beer.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I want to try that.
It was quite good.
Do you remember a brand name or anything like that for it?
I could get the brand name because our cider loving friends are addicted to this dry hopped cider.
That would be cool to try when I go there next month.
All right, you get that. And I will, in the interim, point out that we do finally have our first question posted.
No way.
From our good friend Martin.
Hello,
Martin. See, everybody loves Martin. Are you listening to us, Martin? Everybody
Thank you,
loves
Martin.
you. So the question is, can everyone speak at 2x speed, please?
Oh, is he trying to catch up again?
Yeah,
No,
probably.
definitely not.
Oh my god, holy fuck, yes I can.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not working at 2x speed tonight, Martin. You're just going to have to speed up your playback speed.
Well, either you're closing your eyes to a situation you do not wish to acknowledge, or you are unaware of the caliber of disaster indicated by the presence of a pool table in your community. Well, you got trouble, my friend. Yeah, sure, you got trouble right here in Middle City. Well, sure, I'm a billiard player. Certainly mighty proud to say I'm awfully mighty proud to say it. I consider that the hours I spend with a cue in my hand to be golden. Help you cultivate horse sense and a cool head and a keen eye. Did you ever take and try and give an ironclad lead to yourself from a 3-reel billiard shot? But just as I say, it takes judgment, brains, and maturity to score in a ballpoint game. I say that any boob can take and shove a ball in a pocket. And I call that sloth. The first big steps on the road to the depths of degradation. I say first, medicinal wine from a teaspoon, then beer from a bottle. And the next thing you know, your kid is playing for money on a pitchback suit and listen to some big out-of-town Jasper hear and tell about horse race gambling. Not a wholesome trotting race, no, but a race where they sit down right on the horse. Like to see some stuck-up jockey boy sitting on Dan Patch, make your blood boil, well, I should say. Now, friends, let me tell me, you're distracting me. Let me tell you what I mean. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pockets in a table. Pockets have marked the difference between a gentleman and a bum with a capital B that rhymes with T, and that stands for pool. Except me.
What just happened?
What just happened was that Katie
That's
started...
my double speed. Sorry, that's all I got.
The pool table scene from Music Man.
I was going to say, I think it sounds like someone has been in the Music Man before.
I would like to report that I tried out for the Music Man once and did not get a part.
I was in the
really
stage
sad.
band for the Music Man when it was in Billings.
My father was one of the townspeople.
Oh, is that right? That is right. He was.
Yeah, that's right. See?
Oh, geez, we shared a stage. I shared a stage with your dad.
Well, I've shared a stage with you, so that must mean that by association I've shared a stage with my dad.
Except you didn't, because you didn't get accepted.
Well, just to that play.
Peter's dad didn't accept him?
Oh.
That's really sad.
Boys and girls, when did we turn on the mean buttons?
I don't know.
I've been mean all day. I don't know what happened to me, but I just became
You're in Texas.
mean as soon as I got
You need some
home.
tequila.
I think it was...
See, in that respect, Texas is kind of like the total opposite of, say, like Minnesota.
Really? I'm pretty sure some bad stuff... Well, no.
No, you see, the thing about Minnesota is it's more passive-aggressive.
No, that's our job. That's our job here. Passive aggressive.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say something about the Viking, but he was apparently in spring when he did that.
All right. Well, anyway, I'd like to point out that Martin provides you a round of applause, Katie. Thank you.
Wait,
right.
does that mean Martin is our guest next time? Since he's
By the way, Martin, if you would like to be a guest on our next episode, please go ahead and put your approval of that in our Q&A, and we'll get you scheduled as soon as we can. Thank you.
And then you could be the keeper of the list.
You can be the keeper of the list because Jenny has just declared it. And when Jenny declares something, we listen.
So I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So this whole thing about home brewing and then like gourmet microbrews and then ciders and then stuff like that. Is that a... Because I was thinking about it, like people are starting to buy smokers and to smoke meats and do things like that. Is that... Am I just noticing this stuff because I'm now at a position in life where I'm like in the middle class and it's just things that middle class people do? Or is there some sort of movement towards... Because this is stuff that my grandparents just did. Like they smoked meat and brewed beer. And
I'm sorry, they smoked what now?
Meat.
He said meat.
It is
They-
You're in
Colorado.
Colorado, right?
Yeah, no, my grandparents were in Virginia, though. And they would have grown hemp to make rope.
They should have
probably.
hit the smoking stage about 10 years ago.
Okay.
I honestly don't think smoking meat is a recent. It depends
Well, I
on.
don't know
the
that
term
it's...
of recent,
That's why I'm
right?
asking, right? But, like, homebrew is the same way. It's been going on for a while, but it seems like...
I agree.
It's gaining mainstream appeal lately.
I think it's on an upswing, and I think smoking meat is probably the same thing. And if recent is the past 10 years or maybe even 15 years, God, what year is it? Yeah, Jesus, unfortunately, 15 years. Then I think you're right. I think it absolutely is on an upswing. And I think it's part of the sort of localization of food, right? The whole idea of buy and cultivate locally. That if you brew your own beer, if you smoke your own meat, that it's it's a way of providing this local food.
And a lot of it has to do with that, but you said that your grandparents had done that, but later on, after the Second World War, there really weren't a lot of people that wanted to stay home and do that type of thing. And so the generations, the greatest generation and whatever they want to call themselves, sort of wanted a little bit more convenience and less staying at home and doing all this stuff for yourself. And we've kind of started turning it back around because we are going through this sometimes called a slow food movement and all this other stuff.
That's a good
People just
point.
think it's more interesting.
Because I guess that, like, even if you're not brewing your own beer, like the whole microbrew thing, like in the, just after Prohibition was ended, there were breweries in every town. That's where you didn't buy beer from a national brewery. You bought beer from whatever and there's still like remnants of that. Like Yingling was a local brewery that just got kind of big, and now
We have a local brewery.
That's like old school.
No, it's new.
Well, that's what I mean, though, right? But like most of those dried up. Most of those little local breweries dried up when Anheuser-Busch and Coors sort of became these national monsters, and everybody was buying like either Pabst Blue Ribbon or Anheuser-Busch or Coors or something like that. Actually, even Coors was like a late comer. When I was a kid, we drove to Colorado, and I remember my brothers, who were like 18 and 19 at the time, they were like 10 years older than me. It was a huge deal when we got to Colorado because you could buy Coors, and you couldn't get Coors on the East Coast then. Now Coors is everywhere, but that was like 1984, 85, I think.
I feel like the Yangling reach is growing too, because I feel like when we first moved down here, it was really hard to find, and that I've seen it down here since then. And like it used to be, we had to go home to Maryland to get Yangling.
Yeah, it was always. I think it was like when we were in Virginia, that was like as far south as it went. Like, and it wasn't always even consistent. But you also find like people like relearning how to make sausage, and just
I
weird
approve
things
of
like
that.
right? Well, no, it's cool, but it is, and I think maybe Ginny's right. Maybe it ties into that local food thing. So you buy like local pork.
See,
or
and
whatever,
Jason's
and
over
you
here
learn how
making
to
faces
process
like,
it.
"Oh my God, make sausage!" Mr. Man who has brewed his own beer for the past year. Did you guys know that we have mead brewing?
That's
Ooh.
Well, we know now.
That's
Well,
right.
you have
I
hopefully you have mead fermenting.
I don't know what
Close
words.
Brewing.
Listen, my job is to drink it and to hold and to tip the barrel when it gets low and it's not going through the thingy while Jason's bottling it. I tip the barrel.
I mean,
That's
it's not as if Katie's
so nice.
paid to work with words or something.
Come here, Peter. I got something for you.
Not when she's, drunk.
I just recited the whole fucking trouble.
Hey, I enabled that remark, Jenny.
I am thrilled, speaking of brewing, to not have to ever bottle beer again.
Go fuck yourself. I'm sorry, what?
Because
No,
you
it's
have your
not.
kegerator.
Oh yeah.
I have in my, I'm going to take over the conversation here for a minute. I have in my mind a post. So I belong to a local homebrew club that is sponsored by one of our local microbreweries. And I'm an extract brewer. I've been brewing for, I don't know, a year. Hi, my name is Jason. So I'm trying to figure out what the next step is. I don't quite know what I even mean by that. But one of the things I've heard suggested is kegging beer. And one of my issues with that is that at least with bottled beer, I can put that in the shelf and I don't have to consume it right away. My concern with kegging it is that there's an investment in time that once I put it in the keg, it needs to be consumed fairly quickly.
That's not true.
And, fundamentally, I have no problem with that. I'm just, concerned about the long-term effects of that.
Not as quickly as you would think, depending on what type of tap you have and what exactly you're using.
Now, once you tap a keg, can you just like untap it and store it somewhere else for a while?
Yep. Yeah, especially if you're pressurizing it with brew gas, which is either a mix of nitro and CO2, or you're using pure nitrogen. And even CO2, if you store it somewhere where it won't go through like repeated heat cycles, it'll keep.
Can you use nitrous oxide instead?
No. We had
I can't seem to keep nitrous in this house. I don't understand what happens. It just disappears.
We had a kegerator with one of the local brews that was on nitrogen. That thing lasted quite a long time, and it was still very, very good.
So one thing that I've done that's kind of a nice midway point between kegging and the pain in the ass that is bottling is to get these pressure growlers. So this is like a standard, 64-ounce growler, but it's got a pressure cap. And it's a dark glass, so that it's not going to oxidize your hops or whatever. But this is actually kind of a nice thing, because I usually find that that when I've homebrewed a batch, I'm taking it to people and we're having it, like I'm bringing it to dinner or something like that at someone's house. And so, just bringing along a pressure growler is a really handy format for it. And instead of filling like 6 gajillion 12-ounce bottles, you don't have to fill too many 64-ounce growlers.
I didn't know how long one of those growlers would last, but I got 2, and then like the next, I guess, 4 days after I bought those, I got really sick for 3 weeks, and I wasn't going to drink anything because I was on antibiotics and everything, and I couldn't talk or breathe or anything, and they were still good, like 3-4 weeks later.
Oh, that's pretty good. Oftentimes, like you'll, oftentimes
but I couldn't open it.
But sometimes you'll get lucky.
Yeah. It was. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to tell Jason though that I think the next step would be all grain. Just using the bottling system that you already have before moving to kegs, so that you get comfortable with that first. Because then you're really getting into the science of brewing when you switch over to all grain.
Exactly, that feels like a big step. I was privately, internally contemplating that maybe the next step was a wort chiller, just something to sort of advance my game, but not necessarily move up to the next level.
Oh God, a wort chiller! I cannot say enough positive things about a wort chiller.
My friend made one of those.
Can I ask a potentially stupid but slightly off-topic question?
Usually.
Sure. Yeah, usually. Because I was sitting here thinking, there's Peter showing off his big growler, and I was thinking, where the heck is the origin of that word from, as it applies to these big bottles?
Grog.
It's got to be German.
Maybe.
If only there was some resource we could use
Yeah, see, I asked this during the Hangouts so somebody else looks it up.
Wait, you've been sitting there with that question for 10 minutes. Why didn't you just look it up then?
Because I'm lazy. Obviously.
Unfortunately, the origins of the word are very much in dispute.
Oh yeah, I was going to tell you that.
Of course you were. So, unfortunately, during all this hubbub, Martin has responded to our offer of him being a special guest. Unfortunately, his response is that he'd be a most horrible guest, and he doesn't apparently want to torture anyone with his existence, which I think is a load of crap.
I have a cold.
Crap,
I need
crap,
more beer.
crap.
See, Martin, you
Bring
need
that
to cut
bastard in.
out. You are going to be on this
If
show.
I can be a
whether you want to
special
be or
guest.
not.
Seriously. We need the Caribbean influence.
We need Martin so much more than we need Jason. It's true.
Oh, wait, we're trading team players now?
No.
All right, that's fine. I can, I'll watch. I got no problem.
He likes to watch.
I do. I'm a voyeur.
See, there you go. Martin, you can't deny us now. Okay, anyway, moving along. Sorry about that. Go ahead. Were we done with the whole beer thing, by the way? I have no idea if we were finished up with it.
We were telling
I don't know
Jason
what
he
the
needs
hell
to
you
buy a wort cooler, and then he needs to switch to all grain brewing.
See, I personally find all grain brewing to be a pain in the ass, but then I also realize the nature of like why it was that I started home brewing and when I sort of felt like I was on top
a beer
of my
snob.
game. What?
When you became a beer snob?
No, it was when I was living in New Zealand and I couldn't get any damn decent beer. I mean, they had some good British styles, but they didn't really have sort of like my New World Pacific, West Coast sort of beer styles, and so I had to lift my game and make them myself. And so my beer brewing has actually tailed off a lot since moving to Seattle because you can't walk 5 feet without tripping over a brewery. But anyway, the all grain is a lot of work. I don't know. It doesn't really give you much better results. So if you're looking to produce beer, I would say that the all grain isn't a necessary step. But if you're looking at the process and you're interested in the science, then absolutely the all grain is totally the way to go.
Here's the thing that I'm
I've
interested
gotten much better beer from all grain than I've ever gotten from extract. Much more drinkable beer.
Have you done the specialty grain along with the malt extract?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the huge tea bag.
Yeah. And here's what I'm interested in I'm interested in a good beer. So the home brews that I've done have been okay, and they're not difficult, but when I get to the end of it, it doesn't knock my socks off.
I think your wort chiller is going to make more of a difference than going from if you're using a high quality malt extract, and you're using some specialty grains, because there's some stuff that gets sort of left out of the malt extract that the yeasties like.
I don't know about the quality of the extract, but I am using specialty grains in the tea bag, as Tom would call it.
Yeah, tea bag in that. I would guess that the wort chiller will probably improve the character of your beer more than moving to an all grain, just simply because you get when you knock down the temperature quickly after your boil, you get a lot of the sort of proteins to clump together and precipitate out. So you get a lot clearer beer, and I don't know, you get a lot of the that you don't normally want in your beer to just kind of precipitate out.
I agree with that. I can't imagine brewing beer without a wort cooler, to be honest with you.
Oh God, it would take forever.
Yeah.
It's about an hour, maybe 75 minutes by the time I take it off the boil and cool it down to 80 degrees. Takes a while.
Oh, that sounds painful. Get yourself a chiller. Get yourself a chiller.
I appreciate the advice. Thank you.
What kind of chiller do you recommend, Tom?
I just have the one that's I can show you. It's the big
coil,
it's copper tubing, and the big coil that goes all the way down. Just hook it up to a garden hose. Really, that's all I ever do, and run water through there and water the lawn from the other side.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go. I mean, so I know that there are a lot of people who are into. So there's like plate chillers, like you can get, like the Therminator, which is a plate chiller, and they do a really great job. But then you also have to clean them, which is the downside.
And you have to be wary too. One thing about the hobby of homebrewing that I've discovered is that there are a lot of people that have these sort of grand delusions of being like they want to. Their end goal is to be a microbrewery someday, right? So they buy all of this gear that's catered towards sort of emulating the microbrewery process, but that's not what you're trying to do when you're brewing at home, right? So, like the arms for the Sprague, right? Those are worthless for the home brewery. In fact, even for the microbrewery, they're kind of worthless, right? But they don't do any better job of recirculating the wort than just a straight hose would. But people buy them because they look cool, right? So you just have to be.
They look cool.
They do. No, I agree, but they don't add anything to the process other than you spend a lot of money for something that's overly complicated and overly engineered, you know. And those plate chillers are the same way, as far as I can tell.
And they're
copper tubing running through the beverage, through the liquid, makes far more sense to me, and is a much simpler design.
You can also make them yourself and probably save a whole crap load of money.
Isn't that essentially how steam engines work? They ran copper tubing through and then heated up the copper tubing?
I think so.
I think it's more like refrigeration, honestly, with Freon, the way that it pulls the heat out of the cooling chamber.
I'm getting back into it. This October will be the first time I brewed in 4 years.
Oh, wow.
I'm very excited about it. So I'm rereading all of my books and getting into the science of breaking down the grains into various sugars and proteins, and it's awesome. You would love it, Jenny. There's a lot of chemistry in there.
Yeah, I know a lot of brewers.
And speaking of chemistry, by the way, so for Sophia's birthday, she got the Women Scientist Lego set, which includes a
really?
chemist. Oh, it's awesome.
I haven't got to see it yet.
That.
It's got an astronomer, it's got a chemist, and it's got a paleontologist.
My roommate's on order for one, so.
What, you didn't order one yourself? What's wrong with you?
I don't have any Lego.
So?
And I'm happy to announce that my neighbor, and I kind of roll my eyes there a little bit, even though I probably shouldn't. Holly would yell at me for rolling my eyes. Our neighbor got her the Lego Friends Brave, right? Which is fine. If you're going to get her a Disney princess, Merida or whatever her name is, probably a good one to go for. Right. But she's a Lego Friend. She's not a minifig.
Oh, so she doesn't fit in the same...
She does not fit in the monster truck. So one of Sophia's friends got her a Lego monster truck. And the Lego chemist can drive the monster truck, but the Lego princess cannot. And I'm like, that is lame.
Lesson. Well, so they were talking about running out of those, female scientist Lego sets because they made them as a limited run. And I didn't realize how difficult it was to create your own minifig when you just go into the store. So it wouldn't really be something that I would be able to, put together like a little Jenny Lego anyway. But it would have been fun to think about.
I think the lab coat would really be the only thing that you... I mean, she comes with a little, workbench with, flask and test tubes and stuff like that, too. So it's a pretty neat set, actually. I was pretty impressed with it.
Mm-hmm. I haven't. I ordered one myself. It arrived last week. I'm saving it for a gift for somebody else in this household who is not present in this room at the moment. And yeah, I haven't opened it yet, but the box looks cool. And
well, it also spawned a conversation about what a chemist is, right? And Sophia is very much at that age where whatever gender something is presented as is what that thing is, right? Like if an astronaut is a guy, then astronauts are guys, right? So I thought it was awesome that we had a conversation about what a chemist was, and the chemist was a little obviously female minifig with blonde hair and a ponytail, just like Sophia has. So, you know, that kind of was like if you just she already decided she wanted to be a scientist because she wants to go to Antarctica. So,
that's as good a reason as any.
well, and I told her that if she wants to go to Antarctica, she probably needs to become a scientist because usually it's scientists who go to Antarctica. So she's like, I can do that. I can be a scientist. And I was like, well, that's a good career. She also wants to be a singer and a dancer. So
Oh, well.
take it all with a grain of salt.
When I used to run a booth, I guess that's what you would call it, at Nebraska Women in Science, every year we'd have a female come and talk to the high school girls about all the different careers that you can have in science. And we had a geologist who worked down in Antarctica come, and she was, out of all of them, I mean, we had an astronaut, we had a geologist that drilled ice cores down in Antarctica. I think, honestly, most people got excited about the Antarctica one, and they got more excited about Antarctica than they did about space, which I thought was weird.
I have a completely unrelated question because of the way I was pronouncing Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
So I was watching an old Woody Allen interview. Why does he pronounce all of his hard T's the way he did? Have you ever noticed that with Woody Allen?
That's not a really unusual speech.
Is that a verbal tick to talk like that?
I've met quite a number of New York Jews, and a number of them talk very similarly, at least as far as that's concerned.
So that was my question. I was sitting there trying to figure out whether it was Woody Allen doing something to sort of distinguish himself, in media, or whether that was some sort of regional accent. It was really weird. It was a good interview, though. It was on the Dick Cavett show.
Yeah, I think it's just a verbal tick based off of where he was brought up.
Okay.
There you go.
Antarctica.
Yeah, kind of the overpronouncing part. So let's see. Sometime during the last week or so, I believe it was Peter. You were asking a question kind of out loud about seeing 3D movies. And,
yeah. I mean, so I'm. I guess I don't know if I'm in a minority or maybe a sizable minority that utterly hates these 3D movies that are coming out in the cinema.
I also utterly hate 3D
High five!
Yay!
Internet
No, they
motions.
actually make me physically ill. Fuck you. They make me physically ill.
Excellent.
I watched so my first memory of this was watching an IMAX dinosaur thing, and they had the glasses and everything, and I tried to put them on, and I was like this close to throwing up in the floor of the IMAX. It was disgusting. It was terrible. So yeah, we saw Toy Story 3 in 3D, and I couldn't keep the glasses on, and neither of the boys wanted to keep the glasses on. So ever since then, we're like, fuck it, we're gonna pay $5 less and see the non-3D version of the movie, and
And the thing with me is that I've never gotten ill or anything with the 3D effects. It's that my brain adjusts to it after the first 20 minutes or so, and I just don't notice them after that with the glasses. So it's like, it seems to me like there just isn't any point.
Do you have trouble with the glasses?
I don't have a particular trouble with the glasses. It's just that, I see all the effects as I believe they're intending them to be seen for the first 20 minutes or so, and then it's like after that it's like it just feels like I'm watching the 2D movie because.
But you don't think it's because they're in the wrong place on your face?
No, because
your
most of them
glasses?
are big enough that it's kind of enough.
I don't know. I've never seen a 3D movie, so.
So there's two things that I don't like about the glasses. So the first thing is that every movie that I've been to that's been in 3D, and there's so many that they just seem to refuse to show in 2D, or it's a pain to find the 2D showing. The first thing I have a problem with is just basically I always get the scratched pair. I don't know if it's like every pair has like the nasty gash across the front of them, or if I just like draw the short straw every single friggin' time. But I always have a scratch across the glasses. And so I got thinking to myself, I'm like, well, maybe I should go onto Amazon and buy a pair of 3D glasses, because if 3D is the way of the world, and I'm, resigning myself to going to 3D movies, maybe I should just buy a pair to bring with me that at least I can control the scratch issue. And what I found is that apparently you can buy glasses that will de-3Dify 3D movies. So they're polarized in just like the opposite way, so that they'll actually, if you can't find a 2D showing of whatever movie you're interested in, it'll turn them into 2D for you. And I was just wondering if anyone had tried those, or if anyone's had any luck with them.
I can't say I've even heard of that, though it doesn't surprise me.
That would be like paying 3 times more for the same experience, because you would have to pay for the glasses.
Well, and part of it might be, maybe you've got, a whole bunch of, maybe you've got kids that really, really want to go see 3D all the time, and you don't want to fight them on it all the time.
I thought you were going to say friends, because I don't have those, so I don't have to bring them.
You need to work on being clever. I have a kid who doesn't even know that there are Star Wars prequels.
What? You mean they made movies after the first 3?
So I have a weird thing about the way my brain works, which is the reason why I despise 3D movies. So when Avatar came out, everybody said, "Oh, you've got to see Avatar. You've got to see Avatar. You've got to see Avatar." None of them mentioned that it was a B-grade ripoff of Princess.
Ferngully.
Yeah, that too. But the main thing was everybody was like, "You got to see it in 3D. You got to see it in 3D. You got to see it in 3D." So we're like, "All right, we'll go see it in 3D." We haven't seen any 3D movies, right? So. And the 3D, the effects looked good, but there were a bunch of scenes where they would show the vehicle, and you would be clearly, from a 3-dimensional perspective, you would be outside of the vehicle, because you could see this 3-dimensional vehicle, you could see the dirty windscreen, and then you could see that you were away from it. And you could hear them having a conversation inside of it completely clearly. Like, you could hear every word they were saying, and my brain was sitting there going, I shouldn't be able to hear them talk. Because when I'm sitting next to a car and there are people inside having a conversation, which is the only thing I can relate to this experience to, I can't hear people having a conversation inside of a car unless they have the windows down, right? So the 3D took me out of the movie.
Okay, I have a question related to this. If you're seeing a movie where say they've got 2 characters in a diner, and the camera is clearly outside the window looking into the diner, and you're
bother me. Yes, it would bother me.
Why would you hear them?
Why would I be able to hear them?
Well, because they're just showing these 2 people. I'm not saying realistically, like in real life you'd hear them, but in a movie that's pretty common.
I think it would bother me, but in 3D. I guess maybe it wouldn't bother me, because I can't think of an experience with a 2D movie where that's ever happened. But I can tell you that when I saw Avatar, it jarred me out of my suspension of disbelief. I was like, "Oh, I'm watching a movie."
So I have 2 things to add.
Uh-oh.
The first thing is, I can remember one of Jason's favorite shows when we first started dating was Homicide: Life on the Streets, which was filmed in Baltimore, which is where we went to college. And a lot of their camera angles, if you watched it, were similar to what you expected at the time from horror movies. And so for the first few episodes that I watched with him, I was like waiting for the reveal, for this is who's watching these people talk. But it wasn't. That was just how they were choosing to do the camera angles. And I was so conditioned to expect that this camera kind of outside of the scene meant that someone was watching. Kind of like, how when you see a camera running through the woods, you assume it's like a wolf or something, and you're going to get a turn around and you're going to get to see who it is running through the woods. Same kind of thing. And the second thing, what were you talking about, Tom?
Being pulled out of the movie by the 3-dimensional
windshield.
I think
I think sound is far more important to a three-dimensional experience than video. So I was playing Uncharted Drake's Fortune on the PS3, which is hooked up to our main TV in our living room, which has 5.1 surround sound and all that kind of thing. And it was really neat because I'm typically a PC gamer, so typically my games are, like in my head. So I have 2 channels, but I certainly don't have...
Those are the voices in your head, Katie.
I love my voices. They're my friends. So Jason's laughing at me. Did you turn your mic off before you got up?
I don't know.
Then why the fuck can I hear an echo? Anyway, so
I can't hear an echo.
I think the sound is more important to our 3D experience than the video, because I think the ability to, like, in the game instance, the ability to turn around and have the sound move with you is just such a cool thing. I mean, it's amazing. Like, there's zombies behind you, and you turn around, and the sound is suddenly in front of you instead of behind you.
I can't imagine playing The Last of Us without sound. I think that game would be impossible to play without sound.
Right, because you'd never know.
I still haven't managed to play it because it's bloody enough that I just can't play it with the boys, like, anywhere around.
You should be playing it right now.
Noted.
Yeah, why are you talking to these nerds?
Okay, see, part of the problem with The Last of Us is when I get a new system, I have to learn the game, or I have to learn the controls before I can play a game that has any level of difficulty whatsoever. So I tried to play The Last of Us, like, as soon as we got our PS3, because I got it with our PS3, and I just didn't know how to use the controls at all, and I just was frustrated. And so now that I've played Uncharted some, and I have a better control of, like, how the actual, PS3 controller works, I think I will enjoy Last of Us much more because I have a better idea of what the defaults are. Like most PC games, I can figure out the defaults pretty quickly. The only problem is strafing between Borderlands and WildStar or an MMO. But other than that, PC games, like, I have a default, like, built in. I've been playing PC games long enough that I know what the things probably will do. But I haven't played on a PS3 before, or any PlayStation since PlayStation.
I think I told you guys about the first movie we took Sophia to, right, which was Frozen. And the cartoon that opened up Frozen was that really cool old school Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse cartoon, but they revamped it so that it took place in the modern era as well as in the past, and they were like...
Right, and it, like, came out of the screen and stuff?
So there's a scene in that where they're flying an airplane around, right? Like, I think one of the characters turns into an airplane or something, and they fly around the theater. It's not in 3D at all. It's a two-dimensional cartoon, but it's mixed in THX surround sound, so when the airplane is flying around, it literally, on the sound stage, it flies around the theater. And that airplane flew around the theater, and Sophia, like, popped up like a gopher and, like, spun around 360 degrees trying to figure out where the airplane was, which was hilarious, right? I think you're right. I think sound, I think it just works. Like, maybe it's just that we've mastered it in terms of, like, replicating three-dimensional sound. Maybe that'll change as we, like, develop holograms or holographs or whatever, right? But right now, I think that 3D movies, I still feel like it's gimmicky.
Well, I have to admit that I haven't seen a modern 3D movie yet. I think the last one I saw, I still had to wear the red and the blue film glasses. And part of the reason for that is that we have a son who can't see them. And it kind of takes you out of wanting to go and experience that.
Right. See, and my wife says that she can't see it at all, with the glasses or without.
Well, no, this isn't a mental thing. He's got one functioning sighted eye, so he literally can't see them. So if everything goes that route, and so as a result, well, not as a result, we don't go out and see an awful lot of movies anyway. But I still have not experienced a modern 3D film.
I think it's been a while for me, but I have seen kind of modern-ish. When the last time they re-released Nightmare Before Christmas to theaters, and they did that in 3D also. I went and saw that.
Wait, they did that in 3D?
Yes, they they re-post produced it in 3D. It wasn't filmed in 3D to start with.
So,
Post-produce that?
They basically just cut out the individual images and pull them forward.
Weird.
Yeah, it I don't know. Maybe it was just that movie, but like I said, I stopped mentally interpreting the 3D images after about the first 20 minutes, and I would point out that our good friend Martin agrees with me.
So my father has a 3D TV, and I do not, and I'm not experienced at 3D TV, and I was curious what it was going to be like. And so when I was visiting back around Memorial Day or so, it was late at night, and we were talking about his television, we were talking about his setup, and apparently there's a section in Netflix where they have 3D streamed, I'll call them movies, but really they're mostly documentaries. And so we put the glasses on and streamed a few of them, and they were surprisingly decent. It wasn't bad at all, and this might combat against Peter's issue of the scratched 3D glasses. If it was 3D in his house and he had control over the equipment, that perhaps it might be a better experience for him.
So I've actually been kind of excited to see what happens with like the Oculus and movies presented sort of like in an actual kind of VR context. Because I was going to say the other thing that bothers me about the 3D films with the glasses is that the 3D effect actually breaks for me when little things like the parallax don't work right. So I mean, really, you're fixed at sort of one place, and your perspective is fixed with the glasses in a 3D movie. Whereas I could imagine the 3D effect being a whole lot more immersive if you actually moved your head and actually had parallax work the way you expected it to.
So the one time I saw something like that happen was in Epcot, and this was I don't want to say the year. It was in the 80s, in the mid to late 80s. And it was what was it? It was I want to say it was Michael Jackson, Captain EO.
Captain EO.
Yeah, EO or Evo. I can't remember now. It's been so long.
2 letters.
And they had literally it was a headset. It was like Oculus Rift basically. It was a headset that would fit on you, and they had frames in front of it. And where you would move, you would see the parallax that you're talking about. Now, the real 3D that you get in the movie theaters nowadays is not quite the same thing, or at least my memory doesn't tell me that it's the same thing. But the Michael Jackson one was fantastic, just spectacular in terms of 3D, in terms of things surrounding you. Now, someone said earlier, and I was not plugged in, so I don't remember exactly who it was. I find that the audio is the best part of the 3D. I'm sorry, it's Katie. She's smiling at me. So for years, I looked for THX. I looked for the fantastic surround sound because that was immersive to me. Being able to see things, it's not that big of a deal. But being able to hear the alien behind me, holy shit. I'm done. All right, I'm underneath my chair. I'm licking the floor at that point.
It's true. He does hide under his chair.
I do.
And licks the floor.
Have
you seen some of the floors at Disney World?
What?
Oh, it's even worse than the local movie theaters.
So I'm excited about Oculus Rift, but I've been seeing a lot of things saying that, and there's a technical term for it. I can't remember what it is, but it's simulator sickness, basically, right? Like for the last 30 or 40 years, the Department of Defense and NASA both have had simulators that are far more immersive and beyond anything that is available in the mainstream civilian market. But the problem with all of those simulators is that they're simulating the visual and the audio aspects of an experience, but not the inner ear aspects of the experience. And what happens is a pilot will come out of a simulator that seemed like a very, very, very real experience to their eyes, but not to their inner ears.
Right.
And so they actually, you get grounded. You're grounded for, I think, like 2 days after you fly in a simulator in the Air Force, because you will have simulator flashbacks where your brain is basically trying to make sense of this experience it had, where it's like, I should have gotten something from my inner ear that correlated with this, and I didn't. What the fuck happened? I don't know, right? And I think Leo Laporte on This Week in Tech was talking about it. I think I've heard Mike Elgin talk about it, also one of the Tech News Tonight guy, but they both like fooled around with Oculus Rift to some degree, and both of them have said that there was that sort of experience where it was like very cool and so immersive that they were having like stomach issues with some of the experiences, where they were like sort of their brain and what they were seeing weren't correlating very well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like when you go roller skating and then when you take your skates off, you can't walk right?
It's the exact same thing, only different. I think.
So
Wait. Which part? Is it the same part or the different part?
You shut up. Sometimes other people like to hear what I have to say.
It's different because
You were
I
done.
don't end up
Wait.
with
She was done. She was.
No,
I
Jason.
don't end up
you're
with a
done.
cherry limeade and a footlong coney after the experience.
There you go.
Oh,
Sonic joke. Sonic, anyone? Do you have rollerbladers at your Sonics?
not anymore.
We don't even have a Sonic anymore.
We have a Sonic.
Okay.
But now
Anyway,
I want a chili cheese coney. God damn it.
I think Peter was going to say something on topic.
Are you sober?
Oh, I was just going to mention with respect to the inner ear
So that's a no.
issue, I saw a really very interesting experiment that I guess some German college students did, where they fitted
If it's
people-
German, it must be good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this goes really dark here. No. Some German college students fitted people with Oculus Rift on roller coasters, and what they found is that they were able to synchronize the Oculus with sort of what was happening with the roller coaster, but they were able to like just subtly tweak with people's perceptions. So they were able to do things like basically unwrap a roller coaster, because people don't judge angular distances very well. So they could actually play with things so that if you went around a corner, you actually don't really have a good idea how steep a corner you're going around, and so they could actually play in your eyes, something that would correspond to what you were feeling, but sort of like amplified or downtoned.
That's amazing. That's like taking The Shining and like multiplying it by 100, right?
I think
movie?
so, yeah.
Because have you guys ever noticed that in The Shining, like in the back of your mind, you're going, this building doesn't make any sense?
Yeah.
Because the building doesn't make any sense. On purpose, they filmed it in such a way where you would walk past a door and then you would go around the corner, and what you see around the corner is architecture that cannot accommodate the door that you just saw.
Yeah.
And that's like doing the same thing in oh, that's amazing. God, I want that.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that the house in The Shining was really a TARDIS?
It was a hotel, but sure.
Yeah.
So that would be a really cool way then to increase the effectiveness of roller coasters, so you can just kind of have an okay roller coaster and make it way cooler.
I'm
Right.
sorry, Tom, could you say everything that you just said again, because I wasn't listening?
Have you ever seen The Shining?
I have seen The Shining. I have read The Shining. I have seen the new Shining, which is much closer to the book than the Stanley Kubrick Shining, but a different experience altogether.
Have you ever been to the Shindig?
I have done
No.
the shipping, but they expunge those records.
I've been to a shindig.
Talking.
I like the Stanley Kubrick Shining, and maybe not only in spite of the fact that it diverges from the book, but because of the fact that it diverges
No, see,
from the book.
I like the Stanley Kubrick Shining, but the Stanley Kubrick Shining is the Stanley Kubrick
It is absolutely
Shining. Okay, and then the miniseries that they made, I don't know, 15 years ago was The Shining, and it was
the
actually based on
Shining
the
book
and it was similar-
focuses on Danny.
yeah,
And the Shining movie focuses on Jack. They're completely different.
Right. And in the Shining movie, the Stanley Kubrick movie, it's fairly clear that Jack is just a crazy motherfucker,
from the
And
get-go.
yeah, and in the book, that's not the case at all. Jack is fighting against the powers of the hotel and trying to save his family and trying to get his family out. And he's, like, that's much more evident in the admittedly not quite so nicely produced miniseries, but it's closer. It explains the book better and kind of brings out a lot of the things that I really liked about the book. So I kind of see them as separate entities, that there's the Stanley Kubrick movie that's like got the same name and is set kind of in the same place, but is otherwise not related. And then there's the book.
Well, that's amazing because you just described Dune, too.
Hell yeah, absolutely.
Well,
yeah,
I feel the where the book, the first movie, and then the miniseries are all completely different, and they all have their good points and their bad points, but they're just
like Sting?
Different. I like the casting of the first movie quite a lot.
So I never watched that first movie.
I love the first Dune, but I love the books much more. And so the miniseries, which is much closer to the books,
is
if I'm watching
poorly cast, but a good screenplay.
Right, exactly. That's a fucking great assessment, Tom.
So should I track down this Shining miniseries? Because I love the book and I love the movie despite their differences.
If you love the book. Okay, so the Shining miniseries has the guy from Wings. You remember the show Wings?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
with the two pilot guys? It has the blonde guy, the ditzy guy, but he's not so ditzy.
Hayden Church?
No, not it's
Oh, the other brother.
Steven, not Joe. Steven.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Lowell.
So he is
Steven Weber?
That sounds.
Steven Weber.
I don't fucking know.
That's right. Sounds right.
So anyway, he is Jack Torrance. He is not the Jack Nicholson psychopath at all. He's not. It doesn't focus on that. It does a lot more with the topiary, which is almost completely left out of the Stanley Kubrick version. And
which was very disappointing.
Yeah, it was a huge player in the book. And so it's kind of it really is very similar to the Dune equation, where you have the Stanley Kubrick adaptation, which is basically a Stanley Kubrick story with kind of the skeleton of the book that it's from, and then you have these miniseries, which are not as, like I said, in terms of production value, not as impressive, not as like edge of your seat. Oh my God, Jack Nicholson! He's got his head in the door and he's got an axe, and So, but if you're looking for something that's closer to a piece-by-piece transliteration of the novel into a book, then yeah, the miniseries is much closer to the book. And it actually, I remember really liking the end of the miniseries. Now, this was 15 years ago, so I don't know, maybe I wouldn't like it now. But I really liked the end of the miniseries because they focus on the fact that Jack is telling his family to get out. And that he's trying to keep the hotel from harming his family, and to me, that was kind of the beautiful thing about the book was you had Danny who could feel these things, but you also had Jack who was not as in touch with the kind of supernatural, but knew this is my family and I have to protect them, and that means getting them out, even if it's at my expense. And so the miniseries is much better about, to me, kind of relaying the gut feeling that you get from reading the book.
See, and I'm not even convinced that in the Stanley Kubrick movie there is any supernatural.
You think it's all just crazy?
I think well, especially in the case of Jack. Like, Jack never sees a ghost unless there's a mirror present, which
I think it makes it interpret that Jack is just crazy.
So who here... Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say the other thing. I was just going to rave one more thing about Stanley Kubrick and The Shining, which is one thing that's true of The Shining that's not true of almost any other horror movie I've ever seen, is that The Shining is a scary fucking movie even with the volume down. Like, he somehow managed that cinematography. I don't really know how or why, but even with the volume turned all the way down, his cinematography is just fucking creepy in that movie. And that was my observation. Sorry, Jason, go.
So who here has seen the documentary called Room 237?
I have not, but somebody was telling me to watch it the other day.
I was going to say, has anyone heard of that?
I've heard of it.
It is a documentary about fans of The Shining and the interpretations that they either put into or draw out of the movie, about what different things mean inside of the movie above and beyond the storyline itself. I've not seen it. It looks very, very interesting, but I like conspiracy theories. I like crazy people, so the documentary would be good for someone of my personality.
He did marry me, after all.
Well, I mean, there's lots of stuff to go on. I mean, I've read stuff about the movie, right? Like everything that Stephen King mentions as being red in the movie or in the book is yellow in the movie, and everything that he mentions is yellow in the book is red. And like he swaps those two colors for some reason to sort of create this idea that the movie is like this mirror world of the book, right? And the movie focuses on Jack. The book is very much focused on Danny, right? Like he swaps them around. So I think that there's a ton of, and you know, I've heard people say that Kubrick basically, as far as he was concerned, the film was about alcoholism, right? Like Jack's insanity is intrinsically linked to the fact that he's an alcoholic, right? But I mean, it's like all good art. You can interpret it 1,000 different ways. The same is true of the book, right? I think. But somebody said that movie was on Netflix.
I feel like the book was more multifaceted. You could interpret it as Jack was going crazy. You could interpret it as the hotel was haunted. You could interpret it as Danny was going crazy, and you know that this was just all his skewed interpretation of events, and that none of it was actually that bad. And so I think Kubrick's version of it was certainly a valid interpretation, but I don't think it's the only one. And I think the miniseries, despite being, as I said, not as riveting as the Kubrick version, is still valid in terms of the fact that it lets you the viewer, shut up, Peter. You, the viewer, get to make the decision instead of the director making the decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's true of almost all book-to-film adaptations, right? Like Peter, especially The Hobbit, but even The Lord of the Rings. That's Peter Jackson's interpretation of the books, right? Not mine.
I don't understand how The Lord of the Rings was so... Maybe something changed in Peter Jackson's life that took him on a divergent path from where he was when he did The Lord of the Rings. Because I loved The Lord of the Rings, and I felt like his interpretation of The Lord of the Rings was very similar to my own. And I actually am one of those people that, you know, like, get in trouble at... Ooh, what's Romy watching?
I think it has to do with money.
Ooh, shiny.
I really liked Lord of the Rings. I thought Lord of the Rings, the movie, was in some ways better than the books, because the books, speaking as an editor, I would have been like, motherfucker, you need to cut this, you need to cut this, you need to cut this. This is not moving your story forward. You do not need 45 pages of description. Shut up, Peter. About...
I would change that to say, speaking as a modern editor.
That, you know what, that's
I think
fair.
that's a very totally modern sort of...
That's totally fair. But the nice thing about the media of movies is that you don't need to spend 15 pages describing the Mines of Moria, because you can create them, and you can let the viewers see them and experience them. And so this thing that would have stopped the narrative now becomes a 30-second pan, and then you keep right on going with the action.
You also have a bigger task, right? Like, I was thinking about this. We got the extended versions of all of the Harry Potter movies, and Holly was watching through them again, right? And it occurred to me that when I was reading the books, I had never really envisioned the Quidditch matches from a spectator's point of view. Like I have, when I read them the first time, it was like from this first, like you're with Harry when Harry's playing the game, right? So you're seeing it all from his perspective. But obviously, when you're making the movie, you can't just do that. You have to show the entire game going on, right? So you have this view that doesn't exist in the book, but for the sake of the film, you have to create it, right? And the same thing is true of the Lord of the Rings. A lot of those battle scenes are told from the perspective of somebody who is intimately involved. And I've never been in a battle before, but I have a nagging suspicion that the only thing you're really concentrating on are the 50 or so feet that are immediately around you, not something that's going on 500 feet away.
And I think that's a fair assessment, but I think that's something that with the novel genre, your options are flip back and forth between viewpoints or concentrate on that 50-foot circle. Whereas with the movie genre, you have much more possibility, right? You have the scope of the zooming out to see the enormous army of Uruk-hai, attacking. Fuck, I'm having a brain fart.
No, we're with you.
Helm's Deep. Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
The army of Uruk-hai attacking Helm's Deep, right? I mean, like that. You have to zoom out to see that. You have to see the epicness of how huge it is, and how many fucking trolls are coming. Orcs are coming.
Sure.
But in a book, you don't need that perspective. All you need is the perspective of the sound outside the gates for the person that you're writing from.
It's interesting how some, and I guess it's a cinematography thing, I don't really know. I do know that when I saw the first two movies they tried to make of the Narnia Chronicles, like for some reason Narnia seemed very, 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 very small in those movies. And I don't know why. They just didn't manage to capture the thing that Peter Jackson managed to capture in Lord of the Rings. Middle-earth seemed huge in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and Narnia seemed tiny. And I've wondered about that. I haven't gone back to rewatch Narnia to see if I can figure it out.
In Lord of the Rings, Tom, they were running for a good portion of the films.
So you just see more of, well, that's true of Narnia too, though. I mean, they travel halfway across the land in the first movie, don't they? To get to the White Kingdom or whatever. Where do they go? They go somewhere. They go on a big trip. They run into some talking beavers. I remember that.
Stay away from the talking beavers.
Talking beavers are bad.
Talking beavers are never good.
Anyway, have I put everybody to sleep with my my Narnia talk?
So you want to hear a funny thing about Narnia?
Yes.
Funny thing happened on the way to Narnia.
So I used to teach 7th grade English. And so some of my students, that's what they were reading. That's what they were excited about. And I had never read it. And, it's fantasy. He was buddies with Tolkien. So I was like, oh, I got to read that. And I was not raised in any branch of the Christian faith. And reading Narnia, for me, I had no idea. No clue whatsoever that it was supposed to be an allegory and that it was supposed to be like a Christ story. I'm totally lost on the heathen. So
I was the same way when I read it. I was just too young to know. I didn't care. It was fantasy. It was good fantasy. I don't think it was the greatest series of books I ever read, but it was interesting at the time. I wasn't ready to read Tolkien when I read Narnia.
I don't think I noticed the first time I read through it either. Such is life.
Jesus Lion. Nice. And then his daughter gets taken.
Oh my.
Is that significant in some way?
And the movie, Liam Neeson is the voice of Aslan.
So can I tell you how much fun it is to tell my kids about voice actors? So they love the Lego movie, right? And Liam Neeson voices good cop, bad cop.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were recently watching the Star Wars trilogy. They're finally old enough that they can really actually sit. I mean, we've tried to get them to watch it before, but there's no animation and not enough lightsaber scenes, whatever. Anyway, they're finally old enough that they'll sit through it. And so me and our youngest watched everything except Jedi. And he was talking about Qui-Gon Jinn and this and this and this. I'm like, did you know that the actor who plays Qui-Gon Jinn also is the voice of Good Cop and Bad Cop from the Lego movie? And he's like, oh, no. And then he had to go and tell his brother, of course.
Because, yeah.
This is exciting. Yeah, like
Of
they're really
course.
funny.
Duh.
And, like, you know, we watch Batman. Is it Brave and the Bold that Mark Hamill is in, where he voices the Joker?
The animated series.
Yeah. The animated series, as Tristan would say. The animated series, Primus. So yeah, I mean, so it's really funny to kind of like watch their brains process this idea that when you're watching something, there are actors and there are characters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm apparently putting everyone to sleep, so I'm just gonna go.
It's not you, I promise.
Peter's got a dentist appointment tomorrow at 8:30, and so he has to turn in early.
Why? Aren't they going to just put you to sleep in the chair, Peter?
No, unfortunately.
The big sleep!
Well, I think we've done awfully good this evening, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah. Say yes, thank you. Oh, by the way, before we sign off, I want to ask Jenny how it was introducing people to the Lumberjack song.
So I had it going through my head, and I was singing it, and my sister's like, "What are you doing?" And so I said, "Okay, well, you know, you just have to repeat after me, but instead say he's a lumberjack. He's okay instead of I'm a lumberjack."
Okay.
And so they started doing it, and then, you know, they were listening to me say the lyrics, and they're like, "Those are weird lyrics, Jenny." And so I pulled up the YouTube video, and I showed it to them, and they're watching it, and at first they look really strange, and then they start laughing, and then they were having a good old time by the end of it. So.
Now, what you should have done was shown them the
That was
video
nice.
of Michael Palin doing it in German.
Well, see, they don't speak German.
Yeah, well, there are, you know, I think it works better in German because I don't know, German's a funny language.
I've never seen
German's
it
the
in German.
universal language, right?
Yeah, German's the universal language of drunken funniness.
Well, I thought, you know, since they're so teenagery and they act like a 16 and a 17-year-old would, that it was nice that they enjoyed this.
Well, I congratulate you in furthering their cultural education
Thank you.
because it's very important.
You know, if you can't introduce people to Monty Python every once in a while, what's
Then
the point of
life just isn't worth living, really. Katie, wake up.
Always look on the bright side of life.
Speaking of which, I think we're coming right up upon our time allotment.
Yeah, I think so.
We're only allowed so much bandwidth.
We're going to fill up YouTube if we keep going.
I think we did a very good job, and I would like to bid a fond adieu to
No
our
one watches this
loyal
on
viewers.
YouTube.
It still
Thank
goes
you,
there.
viewers.
It still
We
goes
didn't
there,
answer-
anyway.
We didn't answer Martin's question.
What was
Which one?
Martin's question?
It's an outstanding question.
We
Yeah,
still-
that's an outstanding
Oh,
question.
that's
He just wanted,
unacceptable.
yeah, he just wanted to know what was on the TV behind Jim.
Once
Oh.
upon a time.
Yeah, once
Yeah.
upon a time.
Sweet.
Semi-behind
All answers have
Jim.
been resolved.
Yeah, so there we go.
Yep.
We have no more questions to resolve. The
No
problems of
cliffhangers.
Yep.